Hello and welcome back to the Smash Archive, the series where we look at every game franchise represented in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. For our next look at a third-party series, what would be a better choice than the company who actually developed Smash Ultimate, Bandai Namco? Now normally for these videos, they're structured in such a way where we take deep dives through the main series, which have playable characters, followed by quick skims through the minor series. However, we'll be going through them a bit differently this time. First, we'll look through all the various Namco Arcade games released through the 1980s, then we'll take a deep dive through the Tekken series, and finally end off with quick looks at the 4 other Namco series present. Also, this video will feature a unique category with Namco Roulette, this being one of Pac-Man's taunts where he summons a random Namco character, which I felt like including just to cover everything pulled from Namco. With that out of the way, let's get started with Namco's roots in 80s arcades. To make this section quick, similar to how for the NES video we had some content that was based on the Famicom itself, we have a few things that are just in general based on 80s Namco arcade games. To be specific, we have 2 music tracks which are both retro medleys. The first one contains Galaga's starting music, New Rally X's main theme, and Level Clear music, Mappy's main theme, and Level Clear music, Dig Dug's Level Start theme, main theme, and Level Clear music, and the Tower of Druaga's main theme, and Level Complete theme. And the second has the main theme from the Return of Ishtar, the first level or Area 1 theme from Dragon Spirit, the transformation theme from Wonder Momo, the main theme from Valkyrie no Densetsu, and the name entry theme from Thunder Ceptor. Releasing in arcades in 1979, Galaxian was a space shooter, which was effectively Namco's answer to Taito's Space Invaders, which released the previous year and was a massive hit in arcades at the time, with both games being influenced by the large-scale space battles from Star Wars. Galaxian is notable for not only being one of the first games to use RGB color graphics, but also being the first game to use a tile-based hardware system, which allowed the developers to build the game's graphics using a set of reusable components instead of drawing everything individually. Galaxian would become Namco's first major success, becoming the second highest grossing arcade game in Japan in 1979, as well as both Japan and America in 1980. The game would receive multiple home console ports and sequels, though for our purposes, we're mainly just interested in the first two sequels. Galaga, which released in 1981, and Gaplus from 1984, with the Galaxian series as a whole managing to sell over 12 million units, along with Galaga arguably being Namco's most famous game from this era other than Pac-Man. Because of that, we have a good amount of content from the Galaxian series, albeit with most of it coming from Galaga. To start off, we have a new medley which incorporates various jingles and sound effects from Galaga, including the game start theme, the Fighter Stolen theme, the Challenge Stage Perfect theme, and the Name Entry First theme. Next is the item Boss Galaga, a common ship from Galaga that takes 2 hits to kill, which uses a tractor beam to steal the player's ship. In Smash, when thrown, it imitates its behavior from Galaga, flying to the top of the screen before coming back down to try and grab a fighter in its tractor beam, with it then carrying them to the top blast zone, with it also being possible to kill it in 2 hits, just like in Galaga. Then we have 3 Namco Roulette characters: Galax-Ip, the player ship from Galaxian, Fighter, the player ship from Galaga, and Hyper Ship, a secret playable ship in Gaplus. Finally, there's spirit number 1292, Boss Galaga, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Berry Immunity. In addition to its appearance as an item, Boss Galaga's tractor beam also shows up as Pac-Man's grab. In 1979, Toru Iwatani, who had previously created Namco's first ever video game, GB, wanted to make a game that could appeal to both men and women, as he felt most arcade games at the time only appealed to men due to their crude graphics and violence, and overall led to arcades having a seedy environment, with him deciding to focus the game around eating based on him believing that women enjoyed eating desserts and sweets. It ended up having the longest development cycle for a video game at the time, lasting a year and 5 months, with it originally being called PAC-MAN after the Japanese onomatopoeia for opening and closing a mouth, though both the game and its character were later renamed to Pac-Man, with his design being based on a mix of the Japanese character for mouth, kuchi, and a pizza missing 1 slice, with the game requiring the player to navigate a maze in order to eat all the pellets whilst avoiding 4 ghosts that are constantly chasing you. Pac-Man proved to be a massive success, with it managing to be the game that ended Space Invaders' dominance in arcades when it released in 1980, with it proceeding to receive several home console ports, with the Atari 2600 port selling 8 million copies alone, making it the best-selling 2600 game, along with several sequels and countless spin-offs ranging from puzzle games to point-and-click adventure games and even 3D platformers. Pac-Man standing as Namco's second best-selling franchise franchise, along with Pac-Man himself going on to be Namco's mascot, as well as an icon of both video games as a whole and 80s pop culture. Because of that, Pac-Man is easily the most represented Namco series from this era. First, we have fighter number 55, Pac-Man. Whilst his default look in Smash is based on his more humanized design, which was originally created for Japanese promotional material, several of his attacks see him transform into his classic circle design. Next is the stage PAC-LAND, this being based and named after the 1984 arcade game of the same name, which was a 2D side-scroller seeing Pac-Man traveling to return a lost fairy to their home, with it also being one of the first games to use parallax scrolling, with the stage's aesthetics primarily being based on the Japanese version of the game. The stage is an auto-scroller, but the scrolling speed being based on how far ahead or behind the fighters are, starting in the town where Pac-Man lives with 3 fire hydrants that shoot water which can push fighters, which is followed by a forest which features tree trunks fighters have to jump over. Randomly, out of the several fire hydrants and tree trunks, 2 can be pushed to the side which then make a fighter giant, which is based on how the helmet power-up was found in the original game. After that is some bridges over water, with there being a ship which can be collected to create more platforms, along with water spouts that can damage fighters. The fight then reaches Fairy World, where the Great Fairy gives a fighter wing shoes, temporarily increasing their jump height, based on how in the game they let Pac-Man jump infinitely. The stage then scrolls in the opposite direction, starting in a desert area with cacti, with it being possible to get a special Pac item that grants temporary invincibility, followed by a canyon with falling log bridges and a small lake with a springboard. Finally, the fight goes back to the city with Miss Pac-Man waiting outside Pac-Man's house. At this point, the stage then loops with the time of day changing each round, starting on midday, then evening, followed by night, and then ending on morning before looping back to midday. Then we have 3 music tracks, all of which are Smash 4 remixes, with 2 songs that incorporate the game start and intermission themes from the original Pac-Man, one using the same sound chip as various Namco Arcade games, along with a club remix. As well as a remix of the themes for Pac-Man's Park and Block Town, the first 2 worlds of PAC-MANIA. with the song also ending with the death sound. Following that is an assist trophy based on the 4 ghosts from the original Pac-Man, named Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. When summoned, they fly around the stage damaging fighters upon contact. Blinky constantly following fighters, Pinky trying to get in front of them, Inky mirrors Blinky, and Clyde's movements are random, these behavior patterns being based on how the ghosts worked in the original Pac-Man. In addition, we have the Namco Roulette character, Turn to Blue, this being the ghost's appearance when Pac-Man gets a power pellet, power-up which lets Pac-Man eat the ghost for a limited time. To end off, there's 5 spirits. Number 946, Pac-Man, a fighter spirit. The spirit art is actually just general promotional artwork from the 2010s. Number 947, Mother Fairy, a 2-slot ace support spirit with the effect critical health stats double up. This being the large fairy from PAC-LAND which gives Pac-Man the wing shoes when he reaches Fairyland. Number 948, Ghosts, a 3-slot advanced primary shield spirit. In addition to their assist trophy appearance, they also show up as Pac-Man's smash attacks, Blinky for forward smash, Inky for up smash, and both Pinky and Clyde for down smash. Number 949, Turn to Blue, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect trade-off speed up. Whilst this is the name used in Smash, they're also sometimes referred to as scaredies, as well as simply vulnerable or blue ghosts. And number 950, Bonus Fruit, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect stamina up. These being items from the original Pac-Man which appear near the center of the maze and reward bonus points for collecting them, appearing in the order Cherry, Strawberry, Orange, Apple, Melon, Galaxian Starship, Bell, and Key. These items appearing as Pac-Man's neutral special, with the Starship matching its movements in Galaxian, whilst the Bell's sound effect and its ability to paralyze enemies references the Bell from Mappy. Rally X is a maze chase game which was designed to be a successor to the Sega arcade game Head On, with the game requiring you to navigate a maze to collect flags in a blue Formula 1 car, whilst making sure to avoid colliding into various red cars. Whilst the game did well in Japan, being the 6th highest grossing arcade game in the country when it released in 1980, the US release didn't really make any waves, though it is highly recognised for its technical achievements, namely being one of the first games to feature bonus stages and a continuous music track, with it also receiving several remakes and sequels. From this point on, the various arcade games only get 1 or 2 pieces of representation, with Rally X getting 2, most likely due to its popularity in Japan. To begin, we have the item Special Flag, these being flags that reward the player with double the points of a regular flag, with it also doubling the value of every other flag collected for the rest of the level as long as you don't die, with the Special Flag having since appeared in multiple other Namco games, becoming a sort of symbol for the company. In Smash, using the flag forces the player to enter a pose for 3 seconds, and if they manage to avoid getting hit during 3 seconds, they're rewarded with either an extra point in timed matches or an extra stock in stock matches. On top of that, the player character's car, referred to as My Car, appears in Namco Roulette. King and Balloon is a shooter in a very similar style to Galaxian, this time seeing you need to use a cannon to shoot hot air balloons which are trying to kidnap a king, where instead of losing lives from getting hit, you instead lose them if the king gets lifted off screen by the balloons. The game doesn't seem to be too notable within the overall Namco Arcade library, the only really interesting thing being that the game is one of the first to have speech synthesis, which is a computer program that imitates a human voice. Because of that, this is our first series that only gets 1 piece of representation, that being the king that you have to protect appearing as part of Namco Roulette. Bosconian was yet another shooter game, except instead of only being able to move left and right, the player was able to freely move around the screen in 8 directions, with the ships simultaneously shooting both in front and behind it. The goal being to destroy missiles and enemy bases, whilst also dodging asteroids and mines. Whilst the game did really well in Japan, receiving positive reviews and becoming the 7th highest grossing arcade game of 1981 in the country, it didn't perform well internationally, with most of the leftover units being converted into Galaga. Because of that, like King and Balloon, only one thing is taken, that being a Namco roulette appearance from Fighter, the player's ship which shares its name and looks very similar to the player's ship from Galaga. Dig Dug sees you control a digger who has to travel underground in order to defeat waves of enemies, either by crushing them underneath rocks or blowing them up using an air pump. The idea being that it's a maze game where the player creates the maze. Upon its release in 1982, Dig Dug ended up becoming the 2nd highest grossing arcade game of that year in Japan, only behind Namco's own pole position, with it getting various sequels, including an entire puzzle game series starring Dig Dug's son. Despite arguably being one of Namco's most popular Golden Age arcade games, there's surprisingly little from Dig Dug. Like the last couple of games, the only thing taken is a Namco roulette appearance with Puka, a common enemy which has also showed up a few times in the Pac-Man series. Being made in response to the success of Konami's Scramble and starring life as a shooter based on the Vietnam War, Xevious is a 2-button vertical shooter which requires you to use 2 different types of weapons, namely a zapper to shoot flying enemies and a blaster to shoot at enemies in the background, with the game taking inspiration from various sci-fi works including Star Wars and Alien. Whilst a fairly obscure game internationally, in Japan, Xevious was incredibly popular, having broken sales records not seen since Space Invaders, with its home console port on the Famicom becoming the system's first killer app. The game having sold out after just 3 days, with it overall selling 1.26 million copies in Japan alone, along with Xevious often being cited as one of the most influential games in the vertical shooter genre. There's not much from Xevious, most likely due to its lack of relevance outside Japan. As a small change-up, we have 2 Namco Roulette characters. Solver Lu, the player's ship, whose design is based on the Nostromo space tug from Alien, and Andor Genesis, an enemy mothership which serves as a mid-boss. Mappy is a platformer which sees you play as a mouse police officer named Mappy, the goal being to explore a mansion to recover stolen goods from a gang of criminal cats called the Meowkies, with both Mappy and the cats traveling across the floors of the mansion using trampolines which break after 4 consecutive uses. The game did decently well, with it receiving a few sequels, along with it often being included in various Namco Arcade compilations, with the trampolines from Mappy even appearing in Smash as Pac-Man's Up special. Because of that, there's a small but decent showing from Mappy. First is a new medley made up of various tracks and sound effects from the game, including the credit jingle, the opening theme, the main theme, round complete, bonus round start, the bonus round theme, bonus round complete, and extra Mappy. In addition, Mappy himself appears as part of Namco Roulette. Releasing in 1983, Libble Rabble is a puzzle game where the player has to control 2 arrows in order to wrap ropes around pegs, the goal being to capture creatures within the ropes by forming complete shapes around them. Despite selling and reviewing well in Japan, it would take around a decade for Libble Rabble to be released on home consoles, with it not getting an international release until 2021, as part of the Arcade Archive series for the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. Despite this obscurity, Libble Rabble did get a decent amount of content for an arcade game that was virtually non-existent outside Japan. To start off, there's a retro medley, which has the level start jingle, the main theme, the overcharge theme, the bonus round theme, the life lost and game over jingles, and the high score screen theme. Along with that is a Namco Roulette appearance from Top Cup, creatures which, when enough are captured, can start a bonus round. Babylonian Castle Saga is a series of action RPGs consisting of 4 main entries and several side games. Though for our purposes we're mainly just interested in the first game, the Tower of Druaga, which was initially conceived as a fantasy version of Pac-Man, with the additions of combat and puzzle solving, taking inspiration from games such as Wizardry and Dungeons & Dragons, as well as Mesopotamian, Sumerian and Babylonian mythology, with the goal being to scale the 60-floor tower in order to save the Maiden Key from a demon called Druaga, who plans to use a blue crystal rod to enslave humanity. Whilst the series never gained much attention outside Japan, within the country it was incredibly popular, with it being cited as a landmark title for the role-playing genre, as well as a source of inspiration for series such as Ys and The Legend of Zelda. Because of that, we have a decent amount of content from Babylonian Castle Saga. To begin, we have a Swordfire costume based on Gilgamesh, or Gil for short, a gold-armored knight who is the main protagonist of Tower of Druaga, with him returning as the Player 2 character in the second game, The Return of Ishtar, as well as taking the role of a dual protagonist alongside Key in the fourth game, The Blue Crystal Rod. On top of that, Gil also appears in Namco Roulette. Dragon Buster is a side-scroller which requires the player to travel across a map with alternative routes in order to reach a castle to save Princess Celia, with each level having you fight numerous bosses, with regular enemies being stationed between them, with the number of alternate routes changing with each round cleared. Outside of the game being a hit in Japan, proving popular enough to get 2 sequels for the Famicom and PlayStation respectively, the only super notable things about Dragon Buster is that it was actually the first game to feature a double jump, as well as one of the first games to feature visual health bars. Because of that, this is another game which only gets 1 piece of representation, the only thing taken being a Namco Roulette appearance from Clovis, the game's main protagonist. Metro Cross is a runner game where the player has to reach the end of an obstacle course within a time limit, with points being rewarded based on how fast the player beats the level, as well as for both jumping on and kicking drink cans. There's not really much to say about Metro Cross, as it seems to have gotten the standard reception of a Namco Arcade game from this era, doing fairly well in Japan, getting multiple home console ports, and then being included in a couple Namco Arcade compilations. The only really notable thing being a planned sequel for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 called Aero Cross, which got cancelled due to the series it was going to be a part of, Namco Generations, ending after just 2 releases. Despite this, Metro Cross fares slightly better than some of the other games it's in league with by getting 2 pieces of representation. To begin, we have a retro medley, which has the level start theme, the main theme, level clear, time up, game clear, game over, and the high score theme. In addition, the game's player character, simply called the Runner, appears as part of Namco Roulette. Baraduke is a run and gun game where the player needs to beat 8 worlds, which each consist of 5 floors of regular enemies and 1 boss. This title is also fairly obscure, as the game's first home release not only came out 10 years after the original arcade version, but it was only available in Japan for the X68000, with its only other releases being 2 Namco compilations, though the game is still recognized as one of the earliest titles to feature a female protagonist. Due to Baraduke's obscurity, this is another series that just gets a Namco Roulette appearance. Specifically, an appearance from a packet, an alien race which rewards bonus points and chances to earn extra shields via bonus games for saving it. Sky Kid is a scrolling shooter where the player is tasked with flying a biplane in order to bomb various targets, with the planes being able to shoot and perform a loop which can help shoot enemies behind the player and earn bonus points if the loop is performed in certain areas. The game did fairly well, with it receiving a sequel named Sky Kid Deluxe just 1 year later, with both having seen a fair share of re-releases, with Sky Kid also being one of the first Namco games to feature simultaneous 2-person multiplayer. Because of that, this is our last 80s Namco Arcade game, which gets 2 pieces of representation. First, we have a retro medley, which has the main themes for both Sky Kid and Sky Kid Deluxe. As well as the high score theme from the original Sky Kid. Along with that is a Namco Roulette appearance from Red Baron, Sky Kid's Player 1 character. Valkyrie no Boken is an action RPG where the player needs to fight enemies and gather resources in order to become strong enough to save Marvel Land from the Dark Wizard Zona. Whilst this series did start on home consoles, Smash only pulls from its arcade sequel, Valkyrie no Densetsu, which added multiplayer and was overall more linear. As this is another series which isn't that well known outside Japan, this is another franchise which just gets a Namco Roulette cameo, this being an appearance from Valkyrie, the series' main protagonist, with the sprite specifically coming from Densetsu. To end our look at 80s Namco arcade games, we have Dragon Spirit, a vertical shooter which features similar gameplay to Xevious, the game having you play as the dragon Amel who is attempting to save the princess Alicia from the serpent demon Zarwell. The game did incredibly well, becoming one of the highest grossing arcade games in Japan in 1987, and getting lots of praise for its setting, graphics, and music, with it getting multiple home releases and 2 sequels. As a slight change up, instead of only getting a Namco Roulette appearance, Dragon Spirit just gets a music track. Specifically, it gets a new remix of the Area 1 or First Level theme. And that's every 80s era Namco arcade game covered. For the rankings of overall representation, King and Balloon, Bosconian, Dig Dug, Dragon Buster, Baraduke, Valkyrie, and Dragon Spirit are tied 153rd with 57 other series. Namco Arcade, Rally X, Xevious, Mappy, Libble Rabble, Metrocross, and Sky Kid are tied 109th with 37 other series. Babylonian Castle Saga is tied 88th with 20 other series. Galaxian is tied 54th with Balloon Fight, Cold Sept, Custom Robo, Nintendo Labo, Shovel Knight, The Mysterious Murasame Castle, and Virtua Fighter. And Pac-Man is tied 41st with Rhythm Heaven, putting it above Pilot Wings and Wii Sports, but below Golden Sun, with Pac-Man also ranking as the 17th most represented third-party series, as well as the least represented third-party series which has a playable character. Now let's get ready for the next battle as we take a look at Tekken. Starting life as an internal test case for animating 3D character models, Tekken is a 3D fighting game released in 1994, which was specifically made using the Namco System 11 arcade board. The reasoning behind this being that the arcade board was actually made using similar hardware to the, at the time, brand new console, the PlayStation, which in turn helped to make the home release a lot easier to convert. The Tekken series revolves around the King of Iron Fist Tournament, a martial arts tournament held by the Mishima Zaibatsu, a multinational conglomerate, with a massive cash prize being given to whoever can win the tournament and defeat the Zaibatsu's leader, Heihachi Mishima. The main gameplay difference between Tekken and other fighting games at the time was that instead of having the buttons represent different levels of power for moves, they instead represented a fighter's limbs. So whilst most 4-button fighters would have a light punch and heavy punch button, Tekken Tekken instead has a left punch and right punch, with the same being true for kicks. Tekken would go on to be a massive success, becoming one of the highest grossing arcade games of 1995, in turn being viewed as the only true competitor to Sega's Virtua Fighter in the realm of 3D fighting games, with its home release becoming the first PlayStation game to sell over 1 million copies, immediately cementing Tekken as PlayStation's main fighting game series. Because of that, there's a good amount of content from the original Tekken. First, we have fighter number 81, Kazuya, the main protagonist of the original Tekken and the son of Heihachi, who entered the tournament to get revenge on Heihachi for having thrown Kazuya off a cliff when he was a child. Though despite this, Kazuya has been consistently portrayed as an anti-hero at best, or flat out villain at worst. In addition to his default look, which is based on his design from Tekken 5, he also has an alternate costume based on his default outfit from Tekken 7. Next are 3 music tracks, which are all specifically taken from the PlayStation version, with the themes for the stages Marine Stadium, Chicago, and Kyoto. Then we have a Mii Brawler costume based on Heihachi, the final boss of the original Tekken and arguably the series' most iconic character, with the costume specifically being based on a younger Heihachi design from Tekken Tag Tournament 2. In addition, an 8-bit sprite of Heihachi also shows up as part of Namco Roulette, the sprite coming from Tag 2, though it's instead based on his older grey hair design from Tekken 3 onwards. Finally, there's 7 spirits. Number 1474, Kazuya Mishima, a fighter spirit. The artwork is original to Smash Ultimate. Number 1476, Heihachi Mishima, a 2-slot legend primary attack spirit with the effect fist and foot attack up. The spirit art is from Tekken 7, which retconned the reason for Heihachi throwing Kazuya off the cliff as a test to see if he inherited the devil gene from Kazuya's mother, Kazumi. Number 1479, Kuma and Panda, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect Impact Run, a pair of bears who were taught martial arts by Heihachi to serve as bodyguards. Kuma has been around since the original Tekken, serving as Heihachi's personal bodyguard and having a rivalry with Paul Phoenix, though the Kuma that appears in Tekken 3 onwards is actually the son of the original Kuma, who died of old age between Tekken 2 and 3, with Panda having been a new character for Tekken 3, where she was given as a bodyguard for Xiao Yu after she managed to impress Heihachi with her fighting prowess. The spirit art for both characters is taken from Tekken 7, where Kuma ended up being promoted to work in the Tekken Force, whilst Panda only entered the tournament trying to find Xiao Yu. Number 1480, Nina Williams, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Air Attack Up, a cold-blooded assassin from Ireland who joined the tournament as part of a job to kill Heihachi, though despite this, Nina has no allegiances, having even worked for the Mishima Zaibatsu in Tekken 6 and 7. The artwork is from Tekken Blood Vengeance, a non-canon animated movie from 2011 where she fulfilled a similar role to her Tekken 6 appearance, with her being a trusted member of Jin's forces. Number 1481, King and Armor King, a 3-slot advanced primary grab spirit with the effect Strong Throw. A pair of Mexican wrestlers wearing jaguar masks who only talk via jaguar noises. King enters the tournament in order to use the prize money to keep his orphanage running. Meanwhile, Armor King wants revenge on King for damaging one of his eyes during a previous match, affecting his wrestling career. Though after losing to King in the tournament, the two became close friends and sparring partners. Similar to the previously mentioned Kuma, there have actually been more than one King and Armor King. The original King having been murdered between Tekken 2 and 3 by 3's final boss, Ogre, with the King from Tekken 3 onwards being one of the kids from King's orphanage who was trained by Armor King. Meanwhile, Armor King was murdered between Tekken 3 and 4 by the fighter Craig Marduk, with the Armor King introduced in Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection being the younger brother of the original Armor King. The spirit art for both characters is taken from Tekken 7, where King enters the tournament to raise money for both his orphanage, as well as the medical costs for both Marduk and Armor King after they go into a fight with each other that seriously injured both fighters. And after their recovery, Armor King and Marduk agree to a final showdown with the promise that the loser has to retire from fighting. Number 1483, Paul Phoenix and Martial Law, a 2-slot advanced primary attack spirit with the effect Foot Attack Up. A pair of martial artists from America who are close friends with each other, Paul having entered the tournament to prove himself against stronger opponents, whilst Martial wants to use the prize money to open up his own martial arts school. As the series go on, the two end up becoming more joke characters, with Paul constantly just missing out on winning the various tournaments, whilst Law is constantly in need of money. The artwork is taken from Tekken 7, where Paul enters the tournament and instead of fighting Kuma, ends up battling Panda. Meanwhile, Marshall is trying to find someone who can run the dojo whilst he tries to pay off a debt caused by his son Forrest getting in a motorcycle accident. And number 1484, Yoshimitsu, a 3-slot advanced primary attack spirit with the effect Sword Attack Up. A cyborg ninja from the Manji clan who helps the less fortunate by giving them money stolen from the rich, with Yoshimitsu having entered the tournament in an attempt to steal the prize money. In addition to his appearance in the Tekken games, one of Yoshimitsu's ancestors, who is also named Yoshimitsu, is a recurring character in Namco's other big fighting game series, Soul Calibur, with both having received a new design in almost every entry, the spirit art specifically being based on Yoshimitsu's appearance in Tekken Tag Tournament 2. At the end of the first game, after managing to defeat Heihachi, Kazuya threw Heihachi off of the same cliff he was thrown from as a child and took over the Mishima Zaibatsu, with Kazuya using his newly gained power and influence to try and take over the world, having critics assassinated and extorting money from various businesses and organizations. 2 years after the first game, Kazuya hosts the King of Iron Fist Tournament 2, with a cash prize of $1 trillion. The tournament being a setup for Kazuya to dispatch of his enemies, most notably Jun Kazama, an animal rights activist and operative who wants to arrest Kazuya for his genetic experiments on kidnapped endangered animals, and Heihachi, who not only survived the fall, but climbed back up and has been training to take down Kazuya ever since. Tekken 2's main gameplay additions were some characters getting attack reversals, back throws, chain throws, as well as the Mishimas specifically getting a sidestep technique, which would go on to be a standard ability for every character from Tekken 3 onwards. Tekken 2 was viewed as a massive step up from the first game, with it being heavily praised for its improvements in both gameplay and presentation, with the arcade release becoming one of the highest grossing arcade games of all time, along with the PlayStation port, which added a new survival, team battle and time modes, managing to sell 5.7 million copies, making Tekken 2 the 15th best-selling PlayStation game. Despite this success, there's surprisingly little from Tekken 2. The only things taken are 4 music tracks, with the arcade version of the theme for Heihachi's stage, Pagoda Temple, and 3 versions of the theme for Kazuya's stage, Eternal Darkness, with the arcade version, the PlayStation version, and a new remix. "15 years have passed since the events of Tekken 2, which ended with Heihachi managing to defeat Kazuya and his demonic transformation, Devil, before then throwing Kazuya into an active volcano, leaving him for dead. Since then, Heihachi has managed to establish world peace thanks to the Zaibatsu's own military group, the Tekken Force. Meanwhile, Jun Kazama, despite having been sent out to arrest Kazuya in the previous game, ended up having a child with him named Jin. When Jun disappears after an encounter with Ogre, an ancient creature obsessed with fighting found by the Tekken Force in a Mexican temple, Jin seeks out his grandfather Heihachi and trains under him for the next few years. Heihachi then hosting the King of Iron Fist Tournament 3 in order to hopefully lure out Ogre, Jin wanting revenge for his mother, whilst Heihachi plans to steal Ogre's power for himself. Tekken 3 was a step up from the previous games gameplay-wise, making the sidestep and reversals available to all characters, toning down jump heights, faster get-up and escapes, and the brand new combo throws. Despite the difficult odds and risky take with the near 20-year time jump in the game's story, Tekken 3 ended up becoming one of the most beloved fighting games of all time, its arcade release being one of the most successful worldwide, whilst in Japan the only game that could beat it was Virtua Fighter 3, effectively cementing Tekken 3 as the point where the series overtook Virtua Fighter as the most popular 3D fighting game series, with the home release on PlayStation managing to sell 1 million copies on the first day, before going on to sell 8.36 million copies in total, in turn making it the 5th best-selling PlayStation game of all time, ranking only behind Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and the first 2 Gran Turismo games. Because of that legacy, there's a good amount of content from Tekken 3. To begin, we have 4 music tracks. First is a track which contains the arcade versions of both the demo movie theme and the character select theme. The arcade version of Hwoarang's theme, which plays on his stage, Taekwondo Dojo. The arcade version of Jin's theme, which plays on his stage, Tiger Dojo Tokyo. The PlayStation version of Heihachi's theme, which plays on his stage, Mexican Temple. In addition, there's 3 spirits. Number 1477, Jin Kazama, a 2-slot Ace primary shield spirit which can be enhanced at level 99. As mentioned earlier, Jin is the son of both Jun and Kazuya, with Jin being the closest Tekken gets to a member of the Mishima family that's a good person, though he's still morally questionable a few times. The artwork is taken from Tekken 7, where he's actually in a coma for a majority of the story due to the events of Tekken 6. Number 1478, Devil Jin, a 2-slot Legend primary shield spirit with the effect additional midair jump. This being Jin's equivalent to Kazuya's devil transformation, which he first takes after being betrayed by Heihachi in Jin's arcade ending, with Devil Jin later showing up in Jin's Tekken 4 ending before becoming a fully playable character starting with Tekken 5. The artwork is from Tekken 7, where Jin ends up having a brief fight in his devil form against his rival Hwoarang. And number 1482, Ling Xiaoyu, a 2-slot advanced primary shield spirit with the effect speed up. A 16-year-old Chinese girl who enters the tournament in order to build her own amusement park. Though, as the series goes on, she ends up getting more involved with the Mishima's affairs, in particular having a fascination with Jin. The artwork is from Tekken 7, where she breaks into the Mishima Zaibatsu building, trying to find information where Jin disappeared to after the events of Tekken 6. Tekken Tag Tournament is a non-canon entry, which in addition to including virtually every character from the first 3 games, switches up the fighting to a 2 vs 2 tag system. Though unlike most tag games where you have to defeat each member of a player's team, you instead lose a round if just one member is KO'd, creating more strategy of when to tag out. Unlike previous installments where the home and arcade releases were fairly similar outside of extra modes and characters, Tag's home release saw a significant graphical improvement, as it was the first entry in the series to release on the PlayStation 2. Despite the change up in gameplay, Tag Tournament still reviewed and sold well, even if it didn't reach the same level of sales that Tekken 3 did, with it later receiving a HD remaster on the PlayStation 3 as part of the Tekken Hybrid Collection, which also included a demo for Tag Tournament 2 and the animated movie Tekken Blood Vengeance. Despite this, there's not much from Tag Tournament, likely due to its non-canonical nature. The only things taken are 2 music tracks, both of which specifically come from the PlayStation 2 version. Those being the music that plays during the opening movie, and the theme for both of the Jin stages. Set 2 years after Tekken 3, the Zaibatsu has managed to obtain DNA samples from the defeated ogre, with the plan having been to splice it with Heihachi's genomes to make him immortal. However, the experiments failed due to Heihachi lacking the devil gene, the power which gave Kazuya and Jin their devil transformations. In the meantime, Jin has been in self-exile in order to force himself to unlearn the Mishima fighting style due to Heihachi's betrayal, with a Tekken Force raid on a biotech company named the G Corporation, leading to Heihachi discovering that G Corp not only recovered Kazuya's body when he threw him into the volcano at the end of Tekken 2, but have also brought him back to life. Wanting to obtain the power of the Devil Gene, Heihachi announces the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 in order to lure out both Kazuya and Jin, with the winner receiving ownership of the Mishima Zaibatsu. Whilst Tekken 4 definitely has its fans, it's sometimes viewed as the weakest main entry from a competitive perspective, as the introduction of walled stages, uneven terrain, and interactive environments, whilst definitely being an incredibly impressive showcase for graphics and visuals for the time, led to a lot of the stages not being competitively viable. This not being helped by the roster having some notable absences from popular characters at the time, with the characters that were present suffering from major balancing issues. Because of that, there's not much from Tekken 4. Like Tag Tournament, we only have 2 music tracks, which are both taken from the PlayStation 2 version. Kish, the theme for the beach stage, and Bit Crusher, the theme for the Shinjuku stage. Just moments after Tekken 4's ending, with Jin managing to defeat both Kazuya and Heihachi before flying away in his devil form, the dojo they were in is attacked by an armada of jack robots sent by G Corp, which blow themselves up, seemingly killing Heihachi, with Kazuya barely escaping in his devil form. 2 months later, the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 is announced by the Zaibatsu's mysterious new owner, once again offering the prize of ownership of the Mishima Zaibatsu, with the new owner turning out to be Jinpachi Mishima, Heihachi's father, who was chained up underneath the dojo by Heihachi over 40 years ago as part of a coup to take over the Zaibatsu, Jinpachi having since been possessed by some malevolent entity. Tekken 5 was a sort of return to the series' roots, as the game ended up ditching most of Tekken 4's inclusion and returned to the more fast-paced gameplay of Tekken 3, which thanks to that, plus a boost in graphics, characters, and the introduction of character customization, Tekken 5 did incredibly well, often being viewed as a fan-favorite entry, with its home release standing as the 8th best-selling PlayStation 2 game at 6 million copies sold. On top of an arcade-exclusive balance patch, dubbed Tekken 5.1, there was also a second standalone update, which also added more characters and stages, named Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, which saw home release on the PSP, as well as a later digital release on PlayStation 3, with the PSP version managing to sell 2.2 million copies, making it the platform's 11th best-selling game. Because of Tekken 5 easily being the most popular of the PS2 entries, there's a good amount of content from this game. To start, we have 6 music tracks. Red Hot Fist, the theme for Burning Temple. Moonlit Wilderness, the theme for the stage of the same name. Poolside, the theme for the stage of the same name. Snow Castle, the theme for Winter Palace. Into Nirvana, the theme for Heaven's Gate. And Resurrection, Dark Resurrection's opening movie theme. On top of that is spirit number 1486, Asuka Kazama, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect Lightweight, a relative of Jin who joined the tournament to try and find the Chinese martial artist Feng Wei after he broke into her family dojo and hospitalized her father, with Asuka proceeding to start a rivalry with Lily, the daughter of an oil magnate from Monaco. The spirit artwork is from Tekken 7, where Lily forcefully entered Asuka into the tournament in order to fight her again, with Lily then revealing after their fight that she bought Asuka's father's dojo and plans to move in with them. After managing to win the previous tournament, Jin has taken over the Mishima Zaibatsu, with him then establishing the Zaibatsu as an independent global superpower and openly declares war against every other nation, with the only army standing a remote chance at taking on the Tekken Force being the G Corporation, now led by Kazuya after he killed all the executives who betrayed him, with him even putting a bounty on Jin, with Jin in turn announcing the King of Iron Fist Tournament 6 to try and lure out Kazuya, with it being revealed in the game's story mode that the reason Jin started World War III was to bring out a demon named Azazel, the creator of the Devil Gene, with Jin believing Azazel's death would lead to both him and Kazuya losing their Devil Gene powers. The main gameplay additions for Tekken 6 was a rage mechanic, which boosts the character's damage when they're at low health, and being able to make enemies bounce off of the floor, this being referred to as a bound state. The game would later receive an updated version named Tekken 6 Bloodline Rebellion, with this version acting as the basis for the home release, with Tekken 6 also being the first entry to go multi-platform, releasing on both the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, along with a later handheld version for the PSP. Tekken 6 got a positive reception upon release, with 6's opening cutscene going on to inspire the creation of Tekken Blood Vengeance, with its scenario campaign also being the inspiration for Tekken 7's story mode. Since this is another fairly popular and influential entry within the series, there's a decent amount of content from Tekken 6, albeit with not much variety. The only things taken are 7 music tracks. Ethno Evening, the theme for Temple Grounds. Yuki, the theme for Manji Valley. Only One Fight, the theme for No Theatre. Remix of Dist Thins Out, the character select theme from Bloodline Rebellion. A new remix of Karma, the theme for Electric Fountain. Orisa, the theme for Anger of the Earth. and Yodeling in Meadow Hill, the theme for Hidden Retreat. Like the previous tag game, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is another non-canon entry which brings back almost every character from previous games and uses the same tag style of gameplay. In addition to incorporating various gameplay improvements from Tekken 4 through 6, the game also expanded on the tag mechanic, allowing for extended tag combos and combined moves. In addition to an initial home release on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, Tag 2 would also get a special Wii U edition, which in addition to including all the content from both of the other versions, also includes 2 exclusive modes, one of which is themed around the mushrooms from Mario, along with a bunch of alternate costumes based on various Nintendo characters, effectively making the Wii U version the definitive way to play Tekken Tag 2. Despite receiving a lot of positive praise from critics, Tag 2 is actually the worst selling main entry, likely due to its non-canonical nature and a very weak competitive scene. Because of that, there isn't much from Tag Tournament 2. Only 3 music tracks are taken from this game. Abyss of Time, the theme for Wayang Qlet, Plucking Tulips, the theme for Tulip Festival, and a new remix of Landscape Under the Ghost Caminano, the game's credits theme. Tekken Revolution was a free-to-play Tekken game released exclusively on PlayStation 3, the game effectively being Namco's way of recouping losses after Tag Tournament 2 underperformed by reusing a lot of assets from that game and adding mechanics such as special and critical arts to make the game more beginner-friendly, as well as adding the ability to boost character stats using skill points earned by leveling up. Revolution got an overall mixed reception, and despite apparently having gotten 2 million downloads, it was ultimately delisted in 2017, with support ending not too long after. Due to this, Tekken Revolution is easily the most obscure entry that is acknowledged by Smash, which is why there's not much from this game either, with Revolution only getting 2 music tracks. New World Order, the main menu theme, and No Easy Way Out, the theme for Moai Excavation. After Jin's failed attempt of eradicating the devil gene by killing Azazel, he ends up going missing after the helicopter recovering his body explodes, with Heihachi quickly storming the Mishima Zaibatsu building in order to retake over the organization, taking charge of the ongoing war against the G Corporation, with him announcing the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7, having the goal to turn public opinion in favor of the Zaibatsu by exposing Kazuya's devil form to the world. In addition to Tekken 7's original arcade release, the game would receive an updated version named Tekken 7 Fated Retribution, which became the basis for the home console ports on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and, for the first time for a main entry, PC. The main additions to the gameplay was an addition to the rage mechanic from Tekken 6, where by sacrificing their rage state, players can perform either a cinematic finisher called Rage Arts, or a powered up version of one of their attacks named a Rage Drive. Tekken 7 would receive positive reviews, become an incredibly popular game in the competitive scene, and sold incredibly well, managing to sell 2 million copies in the first 2 months, and by the end of 2022, managed to become the best-selling entry in the series at over 10 million copies sold. Due to this outstanding performance, and it being the most recent main entry at the time of Ultimate, there is a good amount of content from Tekken 7. To start off, we have the stage Mishima Dojo. This being a location that showed up a few times throughout the series, the Smash specifically uses the Tekken 7 design, primarily the intact design used in the original arcade release. The main gimmick of the stage is that in order to launch fighters into the blast zone, you have to destroy the temple's walls or ceiling by either attacking them or launching fighters into them, at which point the stage more so resembles the destroyed temple stage from Fated Retribution. Whilst the actual stage doesn't feature destructible walls, this gimmick is based on the various stages which do have this feature. On top of this, the stage also features a background cameo from Heihachi, who will get up and react to the temple being destroyed and fighters getting KO'd. Finally, whilst not normally visible during gameplay, one of the floor panels includes an inscription of both Heihachi and Kazumi's name, with the two having done so to demonstrate their love for each other, with this inscription first showing up as far back as Tekken 2, appearing on Heihachi's stage Pagoda Temple. Next, there's 6 music tracks. Heat Haze Shadow, the opening music for the arcade version, with it also playing during the first phase of the final boss fight in the story mode. A new remix of Dojo First, the first round theme for Mishima Dojo. Duomo di Sirio First, the first round theme for the stage of the same name. remix of Moonsider's First, the first round theme for Infinite Azure. Remix of Desperate Struggle, which plays during the final phase of the final boss fight. And a new remix of Aloneness, Tekken 7's credits theme. To end off, there's two spirits. Number 1475, Kazuya Mishima Coat, a fighter spirit. This being Kazuya's default outfit in Tekken 7, where after a long battle, he finally manages to defeat Heihachi, seemingly for good, with the cutscenes afterwards setting up Kazuya as the main antagonist for Tekken 8, a role he arguably hasn't taken since Tekken 2. And number 1485, Jack 7, a one-slot novice primary neutral spirit with the effect Fist Attack Up. The Jacks being a series of robots which have appeared as playable characters since the first game, with at least one appearing in every main entry except Tekken 4, with Jack 7 being the version of the bots introduced in Tekken 7, having been created due to an inner conflict within G Corporation in order to prove itself superior to their humanoid weapon, Gigas. And that's everything from the Tekken series. For the overall rankings, Tekken is the 15th most represented series in Ultimate, putting it above Earthbound but below Splatoon, with Tekken also being the 4th most represented third-party series, ranking only behind Capcom's Mega Man and Street Fighter, as well as Konami's Castlevania. To wrap up, let's take a quick look at the 4 other Namco series that are also present in Smash. The Tales series is a long-running series of RPGs which are mainly connected by their gameplay, themes, and fantasy setting, with the name coming from how each one is titled Tales of Blank, starting with Tales of Fantasia for the Super Nintendo in 1995. The series is very popular in Japan, having seen 17 mainline entries, multiple spin-offs, and a good amount of supplementary material. However, it's fairly niche in international regions versions, as, for the most part, only the main titles have been localized, with them not even being that popular outside Japan until the 5th game with 2005's Tales of Symphonia. Because of that, there's not much from the Tales series. The only thing taken is a Mii sword fighter costume based on Lloyd Irving, the main protagonist of the most popular entry, Tales of Symphonia, where he accompanies his childhood friend, Colette Brunel, who is destined to save the world of Silverant by ascending the Tower of Salvation, with the costume's sword being one of Lloyd's twin blades. Taiko no Tatsujin is a series of rhythm games primarily released in Japanese arcades, with there having been at least one new version or update of the game every year from 2001 to 2020. Whilst the series has always been fairly popular in Japan, for the longest time the only release for English-speaking regions was a PlayStation 2 version of the game from 2004, which released in America under the name Taiko Drum Master, with the series not returning to America or releasing in Europe until 2018, with Taiko no Tatsujin Drum Session for the PlayStation 4 and Taiko no Tatsujin Drum and Fun for the Nintendo Switch. Because of its somewhat obscurity outside Japan, and it being a rhythm game where the majority of the soundtrack is licensed music, there's not much from Taiko no Tatsujin. Only one thing is taken with Don-chan, a living taiko drum who serves as the series mascot, who appears as part of Namco Roulette. Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean is a card-based RPG released exclusively for the GameCube in 2003, which was developed by Tri-Crescendo, who have primarily worked as a support studio, and Monolith Soft, who most of you will recognise as the company responsible for the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Whilst the first game got positive reviews, its sales were only lukewarm, though despite this, a prequel named Baten Kaitos Origins would release. However, in addition to skipping a European release, Origins was also published by Nintendo, with it also being one of the last games made by Monolith Soft before Nintendo bought them from Bandai Namco. Despite Monolith Soft having shown interest in making a third game, the series has been mostly dormant, with a planned DS game having been cancelled, with the only new release being a collection of Switch remasters of both games, which is set to release in mid-2023. There is a decent amount of content from Baten Kaitos, though it's all pulled from Origins, most likely due to Nintendo only being directly connected to that entry. First, we have a Smash 4 remix of the Valedictory Elegy, Baten Kaitos Origins' regular battle theme. Along with that is two spirits. Number 1204, Sagi, a 3-slot novice primary neutral spirit. The main protagonist of Origins, who worked for the Alpharad Empire as part of an elite unit called the Dark Service, with the game seeing Sagi trying to prove himself innocent after he's framed for the assassination of the Emperor Ulgan. And number 1205, Millie, a 2-slot novice primary neutral spirit. A young woman who helps Sagi and his ally Guillo escape after they're framed for assassinating the Emperor at the start of the game, with her then becoming a party member who makes up for her lower damage with being able to hit multiple times. Katamari is a series of action puzzle games which started in 2004 with Katamari Damacy for the PlayStation 2, with the series requiring you to explore a map and roll up as many objects as possible using a ball-like object called a Katamari, with the end goal being to create as large a ball as possible within a time limit, with you being able to grab larger objects the bigger the ball gets, with it then being used to build new stars or planets. The series has 6 main entries, along with multiple mobile phone games and a DSiWare puzzle game, with the first two games, Katamari Damacy and We Love Katamari, having recently received remasters. As this is a more niche series, there isn't much from the Katamari series. We only have a Namco Roulette appearance from the Prince of All Cosmos, the series' main protagonist, with the sprite specifically coming from the third game, Me and My Katamari. And with that, we've looked at every series in Smash Ultimate to come from Bandai Namco. For the overall rankings, Taiko no Tatsujin and Katamari are tied 153rd with 62 other series, including the previously discussed Dig Dug and Dragon Spirit. The Tails series is tied 109th with 43 other series, including the previously mentioned Rally X and Mappy. And Baten Kaitos is tied 88th with 20 other series, which includes Babylonian Castle Saga. The next video will be covering both the Earthbound and Xenoblade series, but the one after that being an overview of all the minor series which started on the DS. In the meantime, you can vote for the topic of Volume 16, with the options being Fire Emblem, Pikmin and Animal Crossing, Square Enix, or Konami. In addition, I just want to take some time to thank you guys for watching my Yakuza summary video. For anyone who hasn't watched it, I tried my best to explain the plot of the first Yakuza game to two of my friends who have never played Yakuza before. I had a lot of fun making it, and I'm very proud of the final product, and at the time of recording, it's just 6 likes away from warranting a follow-up where I try to explain Yakuza 2. So vote for Volume 16, check out my other content if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to keep up with the channel, and thanks for watching.